Flames roared above us, turning the rafters into a cage of fire. The door clanged shut moments earlier, sealed tight with a fresh padlock. I heard it, clear as a gunshot. My daughter's heels scraped the gravel outside, then silence. She had locked us in. The smoke clawed down, thick and black. I couldn't breathe. My husband gripped my wrist hard enough to leave a bruise and whispered, hoarse but steady, "Crawl under the smoke." We dropped to the dirt, our faces inches from the ground, heat blistering the boards around us. Every inch forward was a fight against fire and betrayal. I wanted to believe she had panicked, that help was coming. But deep down, I knew the truth. The child I raised was standing outside, watching us burn. Before we dive deeper into today's story, please remember to subscribe to Silent Tear Stories and tap the bell. Here you'll always find tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and those breathtaking reversals we live for. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. Who knows? The next story might echo your own. The barn groaned, and the roof answered with a high, brittle crack. Heat hit us like a wall. I tasted smoke and something cleaner, kerosene, so sharp I could almost see it. A fresh padlock clicked on the door. That sound cut through me like a sentence. We were locked in. Thomas pulled my hand low to the ground. "Crawl under the smoke," he whispered, voice tight. We dropped to the dirt. The world became inches of floorboards and orange light. Outside, a heel scraped gravel. Quick, practiced. My daughter's voice called once, thin and practiced, then silence. Before we go any further, if you're new here, please subscribe to Silent Tear Stories and tap the bell. We tell true feeling stories of sacrifice, betrayal, and the moments that change everything. Where are you watching from? Leave a quick note below. I want to know who's listening. Back in the barn, Thomas's jacket smelled of ash and sweat. We crawled toward a low vent. The smoke stung my eyes. My mind raced. This didn't feel accidental. The scent of kerosene told me someone had planned this. And then, in the haze, a memory hit me like a slap. The glossy folder I'd found days before hidden under the flour. Emily's handwriting on a page that said, "Plain as a command, clear obstacles." That phrase looped in my head as we inched forward. I'd folded the paper and put it back, convincing myself of explanations, until tonight. The padlock, the gas smell, the heel on gravel, the match in a hand I loved. I press my face to the cool edge of the vent and try to breathe slow. Thomas counts breaths beside me, steady, clipped. In, hold, out. "Stay with me," he says. I force the word back. I am here. If you were me for 30 seconds with smoke in your throat and your child on the other side of the door, what would you do next? The smoke that night didn't just appear. It had been gathering for months, silent, invisible, until suddenly it was everywhere. If I close my eyes, I can trace the fire backward, ember by ember, to the first spark. Emily's words dropped in our kitchen like coals. It was a Tuesday in March. She leaned across the table, nails painted black, screen glowing in her hand. "Mom, Dad, look at this property valuation. You're wasting potential on her phone. Numbers bigger than anything Thomas or I had ever seen on a check." My stomach clenched, like when a banker's letter used to arrive stamped past due. Thomas folded his arms. "That's just paper. Land isn't a number. It's our life." Emily's eyes rolled sharp as glass. "It's dirt. You can't eat dirt. You can't retire on dirt. I have contacts who'd make this into something real, a wellness retreat, cabins, spa packages. Do you know how much money that makes?" Her tone was boardroom, not barn. I looked at Thomas, jaw set, silent. I wanted to remind her of fevers we nursed, of dawns we carried her outside to breathe cool air. But memories are currency only parents carry. "You want to sell the land?" I whispered. "Not sell. Leverage." She said it like a gift. "You'd finally breathe. No more 4 a.m. alarms. No more patching roofs with duct tape. Don't you want freedom?" Freedom. I thought of our neighbor who sold his farm, moved into a box house by the highway. He stared at billboards advertising luxury condos on the land he once cut hay. His wife told me she missed the silence most. "We're free right now," Thomas said flatly, "because this is ours." Emily sighed, pitying. "That's exactly why you'll never move forward. You're stuck." Her words circled me for weeks, stuck. They echoed while I scrubbed dishes, folded laundry, sat in the pew on Sundays. My back ached, my hands cracked. Was she right? Were we clinging to wood already rotting? But at dawn, when I saw Thomas walking the fence line, shoulders steady against the pink sky, I remembered. Every post, every field held our story. The cracks widened fast. Emily stayed out late, came home with perfume not hers, a cough that smelled of bars, not barns. She stopped feeding the dog, left mud on the floor, borrowed the truck without asking. One morning I found a pawn receipt in the trash. My wedding china, set aside for her, listed in black ink. "Emily?" I asked softly. "Did you sell the dishes?" She sipped coffee, not meeting my eyes. "They were just sitting there. You never used them. They were meant for you," I whispered. Then I decided I didn't want them. Her tone, final, sharp, hit harder than a slap. Thomas grew restless. "She's planning something," he muttered one night. "She's just lost," I insisted, clinging to denial. Mothers are experts at excuses, but the signs piled up. I caught her whispering on the phone. "They'll sign eventually. If not, I'll handle it." Another night, I found her in the barn, running her hands along beams, murmuring about square footage and renovation potential. Her eyes gleamed, not at home, but at blueprints. And then came the storm. Lightning split the sky. The power snapped out. Thomas went to check the generator. Emily stood at the window, face lit by her phone. I asked if she was worried. She smiled, not at me, but at a text glowing on her screen. Worried. Number. "I've got it all under control, the mini cliffhanger." I didn't know then how true that was. Sunday dinner was the breaking point. I roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, corn, the meal I'd made for her birthdays. I thought the taste of home might soften her. Halfway through, she slammed her fork down. "You don't get it. You're clinging to a carcass of a life. That barn is a tinderbox. The land is just mud. Do you want to die poor and irrelevant?" Thomas's chair scraped back hard. His eyes burned. "Watch your mouth." "Why?" she shot back. "Because truth hurts? Because you can't stand that I want more than this prison you built?" "Prison?" My hands shook. "Yes, prison. You trapped me here with your small dreams. I had to claw my way out, and now you're standing in my way again." Silence dropped heavy. The clock ticked like a hammer. Finally, Thomas's voice cut through. "Get out!" Emily grabbed her purse. At the door she turned, eyes like ice. "One way or another, this land will be mine." The screen door slammed, rattling the house like a verdict. That night, Thomas sat on the porch staring at the dark. I joined him, the weight of her words pressing on my chest. "She didn't mean it," I whispered, though I didn't believe myself. "She meant every word," he said, voice hollow, the voice of a man who knows when the match has already been struck. From that night, everything shifted. Shadows stretched longer, locks sounded louder. Even the wind through barn boards carried menace. I tried to hold on to hope, but inside me, something colder grew. Because deep down, I knew Thomas was right. Emily wasn't lost anymore. She had chosen her path, and we were standing in her way. That night, after Emily spat her threat, "One way or another, this land will be mine," sleep came in fragments. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the rattle of that screen door, felt the sting of her words. By dawn, Thomas was already outside, boots crunching frost. I watched from the window. He used to hum at sunrise, little tunes carried on morning mist. That morning, Silence clung to him like a shadow. I tried to make coffee, sweep the floor, knead bread, but nothing felt ordinary. Every scrape of the broom, every drip of the faucet whispered the truth I didn't want to face. Our daughter wasn't just rebelling, she was plotting. A week later, I found proof. It happened by accident, in the pantry, reaching for sugar. Behind the flour sack, a glossy folder too slick, too new for our shelves. Dust rose around me, laced with her perfume, sharp and artificial. I opened it. Inside, contracts, valuations, maps carving our fields into neat parcels, scribbles in her familiar script. Leverage this. Investors interested. And the line that froze my breath. Clear obstacles. Obstacles. That meant us. My knees buckled. I sank to the floor, pages blurring through tears. I wanted to tear it apart, feed it to the stove. But another voice inside me whispered, "Keep it! Evidence!" For the first time, the thought came clear. I might need protection, not just faith. That evening, I confronted her. She lounged on the sofa, legs crossed, scrolling her phone. Relaxed posture, but eyes sharp as blades. I held the folder tight, hands trembling. "What is this?" Her eyes flicked to the cover, then back to me. No shock, no guilt, just a smirk. "Research," she said coolly. "You wouldn't understand." "Research?" "These are plans to sell the land, our land, everything your father and I built." Her tone hardened. "You act like it's a crime to think ahead. This place is wasted. I'm saving it from becoming a ruin, and saving you from becoming relics. Yet the word carved deeper than any knife. Thomas stepped in, boots muddy, face taut. He saw the folder, then my expression. His jaw clenched. "Answer your mother." Emily's smirk vanished. Her eyes blazed, not anger, but contempt. "You'll never get it. You're just placeholders. This farm should have been mine years ago." Thomas's voice dropped, low and dangerous. "Don't. We gave up everything for you. Don't you dare call us placeholders." Emily rose, chin high, her silhouette sharper than ever. "Sacrifice doesn't make you saints. It makes you weak." The daughter I once rocked to sleep under this roof now stood before me a stranger. My chest ached as though fire had already found us. That night, after she stormed out, Thomas sat at the kitchen table with the folder open before him. His hands, once steady enough to climb silos, mend fences, trembled as he turned each page. "She's not coming back from this," he said finally. "Not the girl we knew." I wanted to protest, to summon memories. Emily at 10 reading to calves, at 16 crying over a lost play role, at 18 hugging us before college, but black ink on white paper screamed louder. I whispered the truth at last. She sees us as obstacles. Days blurred. Emily disappeared for hours, sometimes days. When she returned, she carried herself like a visitor, not a daughter. Her smile was hollow, her eyes already somewhere else, measuring, calculating. And then came the night that shattered denial. I was drying dishes when I heard her voice in the hall, low, urgent, pacing. "Yes, I've got it under control." They won't resist much longer. If they do, a pause. Then, "By summer, the land is mine." The towel tore in my fists. My heart pounded so loud I thought she'd hear it. When the call ended, I stepped out. "Who were you talking to?" Her eyes narrowed, cool. "No one important." "I heard you," I whispered. "You said the land will be yours. What are you planning?" She tilted her head, mocking. "Maybe stop eavesdropping, Mom." "It's not a good look," she brushed past me, perfume trailing, leaving only chill in her wake. Mini cliffhanger. I knew then we weren't just fighting over paper. We were fighting for survival. That night, I couldn't close my eyes. The barn stood silver in moonlight, peaceful, ordinary, but to me it pulsed with danger, like storm clouds gathering inside its walls. Thomas dozed in his chair, face older in the pale glow, lined with years of labor and worry. I took his hand. My voice cracked. She might try to hurt us. His hand squeezed mine without opening his eyes. Then we stay alert. And if she pushes, we fight back. His words steadied me like a wall. For months I had felt powerless, but something shifted. Maybe it was the weight of the folder under my bed. Maybe it was the memory of every sacrifice. Or maybe it was simply survival. For the first time, I realized we weren't powerless. We had truth. We had each other. And we still had choices. At dawn, I slipped the folder into a sealed envelope, hid it deep in the cedar chest. A small act, but symbolic. Armor. Insurance. Emily believed she held all the cards. She didn't. I vowed then, when the time came, I would use it. But even as I made that vow, I felt the ground shift. Her plan was no longer about signatures or contracts. Something darker flickered in her eyes, a shadow that stretched beyond money. And deep down, I knew, long before the first match was ever struck, our daughter had already chosen fire. The night it happened was unnervingly quiet at first. No coyotes yipped in the distance, no owls hooted, just the restless rustle of branches outside our window. I couldn't sleep, though exhaustion weighed heavy on me. My body seemed to know what my mind was trying to deny. A storm was coming, and it wasn't carried by the sky. Thomas stirred beside me. "You hear that?" he whispered. At first I thought he meant the silence itself, but then I caught it too, the crunch of gravel, deliberate footsteps, steady and unhurried. My pulse thudded in my ears. Before we could move, the back door creaked open. A draft of cold night air swept in, followed by the sharp click of heels across the kitchen floor. Emily's heels. I wanted to believe she was just late, returning from wherever she disappeared to these days. But her shadow passed quickly, moving toward the barn. And in her hands, silhouetted against the moonlight, she carried something metallic, something I knew too well, a gas can. Thomas and I locked eyes. In that glance, there was no denial left, only horror and resolve. We slipped out the side door and followed at a distance, the night air biting our skin. Emily walked with purpose, her figure sharp against the pale glow of the barn. I whispered, "Maybe she's just—" Thomas shook his head. "No." His voice was steel. From the shadows, we watched her unlatch the barn, step inside, and pour the liquid in long, deliberate arcs. The stench of kerosene hit my nostrils, unmistakable. My breath caught. She means to do it. She means to— Thomas gripped my arm. "Stay back." But I couldn't. My legs moved of their own accord. "Emily!" I called out, my voice cracking through the night. She froze, the gas can halfway tipped. Slowly she turned. In the dim light, her face was calm, disturbingly calm. "You shouldn't be here," she said. My heart pounded. "This is our home, our life. How could you even think?" Her smile was thin. "Because you're in my way." "You always have been." Thomas stepped forward. "Put it down, Emily." Her eyes flicked between us, cold and calculating. Then, with a sudden motion, she flung the rest of the kerosene across the floorboards. The sharp splash echoed like a verdict, and then, in one chilling move, she struck a match. Flame bloomed instantly, devouring the kerosene trail with a hiss. Heat surged, licking up the walls, swallowing shadows. I staggered back, choking on the first wave of smoke. Thomas shoved me toward the far stall. "Crawl under the smoke!" he barked, his voice raw but steady, just as he had taught others years ago. The world turned into a nightmare of fire and choking blackness. The barn groaned, wood snapping as flames raced along beams dry from decades of sun. Sparks rained like cruel stars. I pressed my face into the dirt, lungs burning. "Thomas!" "I'm here," he coughed, gripping my hand. "Don't stop." Crawl every inch forward felt like eternity. I could hear the fire chasing us, greedy, alive. But beneath the roar, I swore I heard Emily's voice outside, feigning panic, calling weakly into the night. "Help! Fire! Somebody help!" But her words rang hollow. They weren't meant to save. They were meant to mask. We reached the side hatch. Thomas rammed his shoulder into the boards. Once, twice. Wood cracked, but the door held, locked tight with a new padlock. I remembered the shape I'd felt days earlier, metal pressed against wood. She had planned this. She had locked us in. Thomas coughed violently, then growled, "One more." He hurled his weight again, and this time a hinge screamed loose. Cool night air sliced through the smoke. "Hope. Go!" he shouted, shoving me forward. I squeezed through the gap, scraping my arms raw, and stumbled into the night. Behind me, Thomas forced his broad frame through, coughing, eyes wild from the heat. We collapsed in the dirt, gasping, the barn raging behind us like a beast unleashed. And there, standing just a few yards away, was Emily. She held the matchbook in one hand, her face illuminated by the inferno. She wasn't crying. She wasn't panicked. She looked satisfied. Our neighbors, drawn by the glow, began to gather at the fence line. Sheriff Collins's truck roared down the lane, lights flashing red and blue, slicing the night with judgment. Emily's face changed then. She tried to rearrange her expression into horror, into innocence. I tried to stop it," she stammered. "I don't know what happened." But her act was shattered the moment Mrs. Dawson, our neighbor, cried out, "I saw her. She had the gas can." All eyes turned to Emily. The sheriff's boots crunched as he approached, his flashlight cutting through the smoke. He stopped in front of her, gaze steady. "Emily Parker, step away from the fire." I staggered to my feet, trembling. "Why, Emily?" My voice cracked, rawer than the smoke in my throat. "We gave you everything. We bled for you. Why?" Her eyes met mine. And for a flicker, I thought I saw the little girl she once was. But it vanished as quickly as it came. "You gave me nothing I wanted," she spat. "Just this prison. I deserve more." The sheriff's hand closed around her arm. She twisted, but he held firm. The crowd murmured, shock and anger rising. Thomas pulled me close, his chest heaving. His whisper was fierce, almost broken. "She chose this. She chose it, Maggie." The sheriff's voice was firm. "Emily Parker, you're under arrest for attempted arson and attempted harm to your parents." The words hung heavy in the night. Emily didn't fight anymore. Her shoulders slumped, but not with shame, with fury, with the weight of being caught before her victory was complete. As the sheriff led her to the cruiser, red and blue lights flashing across her face, I whispered to the night, maybe to God, maybe to no one, "We lost our daughter tonight, but we kept the truth." The barn collapsed behind us, a roar of splintered beams and sparks lighting the sky. I clung to Thomas, our faces streaked with soot and tears. Neighbors gathered around, offering blankets, water, comfort. But no comfort could erase the image of Emily's calm face as she struck that match. Still, somewhere deep inside, beneath the ash and grief, a spark of strength stirred, because she hadn't won. Not tonight. Dawn broke slowly that morning, as if the sun itself hesitated to look upon what had happened. The barn, our barn, was nothing more than a smoking skeleton against the horizon. Charred beams jutted like broken ribs, smoke curling upward in thin gray fingers. For the first time in 40 years, the air around our farm smelled not of hay and soil, but of ruin. Thomas sat beside me on the tailgate of a neighbor's truck, his arm heavy around my shoulders. His face was streaked with soot, his hair singed at the edges, but his grip was steady. We'd survived. Barely. I stared at the rising sun and whispered, "We lost her." Thomas didn't answer at first. He just breathed, slow and deep, like a man who had seen fire before and knew the scars it left. Finally, he said, "No, Maggie. We lost her a long time ago. Tonight just showed us what we didn't want to see." His words cut, but they also grounded me, because deep down, I knew he was right. Sheriff Collins approached, his hat in his hands. "We've got her in custody," he said gently. "Neighbors are giving statements. Mrs. Dawson swears she saw Emily with the gas can, and we found the matchbook in her coat pocket." I nodded numbly. Words felt heavy, like ash in my mouth. The sheriff hesitated, then added, "She'll face charges. Attempted arson. Attempted harm to family. It won't be light." I pressed my hands together, trying to warm them. "She's still my daughter," I murmured, "but she's not the child I raised." The sheriff's eyes softened. "Sometimes blood isn't enough to hold people to love, but law will hold them accountable." In the hospital later that day, as nurses treated the burns on my arms and the smoke in my lungs, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My face was lined, weary, older than yesterday, but in my eyes something had changed. A hardness, yes, but also a clarity. For so long, I'd told myself sacrifice was enough, that if we gave and gave, our child would repay us with love. But that night had burned away the illusion. Sacrifice without respect is just fuel waiting for a match. When we returned home 2 days later, the farm felt like a battlefield. The barn's ashes still smoldered. The pastures looked smaller somehow, emptier without the great wooden heart that had anchored them. But amid the ruin, our house still stood, stubborn and steady. Thomas touched the porch railing, then looked at me. "We rebuild." Not for her, for us, tears welled in my eyes. "Do we have the strength?" He nodded. "We've carried worse. And we're still standing." The weeks that followed were filled with both grief and resolve. Neighbors rallied, bringing casseroles, offering lumber, lending hands. Some shook their heads in disbelief at what Emily had done. Others avoided the subject altogether, as if speaking it aloud would curse their own children. At night, I'd sit on the porch, watching the stars. Sometimes I'd let myself remember Emily as a child, chasing fireflies, braiding daisy chains, laughing so freely it seemed the world itself bent toward her joy. Those memories hurt, but they also reminded me that love had existed once, pure and real. And then I'd remind myself, love is not a guarantee against betrayal. It's a gift, and sometimes it's squandered. 3 months later, we stood in court. Emily sat at the defendant's table, her hair neat, her expression cold. She wouldn't look at us. When the prosecutor read out the charges, I felt my heart twist. Attempted arson, attempted harm to family, words that should never have belonged to a daughter. When asked if I wanted to make a statement, I rose slowly. My legs trembled, but my voice was clear. "I loved my daughter more than life itself," I said. "But love cannot excuse what she did. My husband and I gave her everything we had. She chose to see us as obstacles. She chose to strike that match, and choices have consequences." The courtroom was silent. Emily didn't flinch. When I sat down, Thomas took my hand. His eyes said what words could not. We did what we had to. For truth. For survival. The verdict came swift. Guilty. Sentencing would follow, but in that moment, justice was already felt. Not the justice of vengeance, but of truth acknowledged. As we left the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. I ignored them all. My gaze was fixed on the sky, bright and cloudless. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Life didn't magically heal after that. Grief still visits like smoke that lingers long after the fire is gone. There are mornings I wake and expect to hear Emily's footsteps, only to remember she won't be coming home. But there's also peace, a peace born of boundaries, of knowing that love does not mean letting yourself be destroyed. Thomas and I rebuilt, not the barn, not yet, but ourselves. We planted a new garden where the ashes lay, rows of tomatoes, beans, sunflowers, life growing out of ruin. One evening, as we watered the seedlings, Thomas slipped his arm around me and said, "See? Fire doesn't get the last word. We do." And now, as I sit here sharing this story with you, I want you to know, if you've ever given your all to family and been repaid with betrayal, you are not alone. If you've ever been called an obstacle by someone you sacrificed everything for, your worth does not vanish with their words. Justice may not come quickly. Healing may not come easy. But truth, like dawn, always rises. So I ask you, my listener, my companion in this moment, if it were you, locked inside that burning barn, what strength would you cling to? What lesson would you carry out of the smoke? Because here's the truth I carried. Respect isn't given by blood. It's earned through love and kindness. And though we lost our daughter to greed, we found ourselves again in the fire's aftermath, stronger, wiser, still holding hands as the sun rose over fields that, despite everything, remained ours. And if this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you loved? How did you rise from the ashes? Here at Silent Tear Stories, we remind each other no one carries pain alone. Subscribe, share, and join us for more tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and the tables that always, eventually turn.